On my birthday, I closed my eyes to make a wish. Who knew that right as I opened them, my mom would suddenly shift her body to block me, giving my sister the perfect chance to blow out my candles. I immediately grabbed the cake and smashed it right into my sister's face. Blow, blow, blow. Are you not gonna live to see your own birthday or something? Before my sister could even start screaming and crying, I threw myself onto the floor. I started crawling around like a dark, twisted creature. I frantically pulled my hair, screamed, cried, did push UPS, paced back and forth, wailed like a ghost, twisted my body in unnatural ways, and rolled my eyes into the back of my head. My parents were absolutely stunned. My name is Chloe Jones and I have been reborn at the age of 14. I can summarize my past life in 3 words. Martyrdom syndrome. Before I was 10, I was a left-behind child. My parents were in the city hustling for their careers, while I lived in the countryside with my grandparents. They only wanted a grandson, so they couldn't stand the sight of me. During those days with no father, no mother and no love, I kept telling myself that I needed to be kind, to be loved, that I had to be a forgiving person to earn people's respect. At 10, I was finally brought to the city by my parents, only to discover I suddenly had an 8-year-old sister. The absurd decade that followed proved one simple truth to me. If you take a step back, people will just walk all over your miserable face. Nobody will ever love someone who doesn't even love themselves. The aftermath of the cake-smashing incident was, of course, my dad lifting me up by the collar, giving me a huge slap. Then he started beating the absolute shit out of me, while getting my ass handed to me. I wailed and cried freely, venting all the grievances I had held in for a lifetime. You just favor her. You 3 are the real family. If that's the case, why didn't you just strangle me when I was born? Beat me to death, kill me? I'll reincarnate you, go to prison. In my next life I'll be your dad, and I'll play favorites too. I'll favor someone else so hard. The moment you are born I'll flush you down the damn toilet. My dad was so furious his veins were popping out like a literal demon. My mom just looked at me with pure disappointment. What the hell is wrong with you? Joke's on her. Her eyes were always full of disappointment anyway. I was immune to it now. I even gave her a smile that clearly said I'll fucking do it again. The next day I purposely wore a thick, heavy winter coat to school. It was fall. All the kids were wearing light long-sleeve shirts. And there I was bundled up in a puffer jacket, sweating like a pig. During class, my homeroom teacher walked over to me and told me to take it off, because seeing me sweat that much made her uncomfortable. I sobbed softly, putting on the ultimate act of a battered, pitiful victim. I slowly slipped off the jacket, revealing arms covered in horrific bruises and welts. Teacher immediately called the cops. I swore right then and there that I would study hard to repay her immense kindness. Honestly, God was on my side. My dad was a senior city official, a job where public image is absolutely everything, so I wasn't worried in the slightest that he would throw me out of the house. He probably wouldn't beat me to death either. All I wanted was fairness. If no one was going to give it to me, I'd snatch it myself. Over the weekend, Mom took my sister to the mall and I was grounded, locked inside the house. Before leaving, she told me to think long and hard about the animalistic, disgusting things I had done recently. Your dad is the deputy city commissioner. He's at a crucial point for a promotion. Do you realize you could become a stain on his record? If I knew you were going to be like this, I would have aborted you, Mom said, wrinkling her brow in disgust. My sister hid behind her making nasty faces. At me, I felt numb, completely numb. I sat in my room for a bit, and suddenly remembered my past life. I was a girl praised by everyone. They clung to my body, drank my blood, ate my flesh, maliciously hurt me without consequence, took everything from me, and then patted my head. They would say, you really are a good, obedient kid. Is it true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease? If so, I wasn't just going to squeak. I was going to crawl on the floor like a goblin about my hair, pick my nose, dig at my eyeballs, climb a fucking tree, screech like an ape and jump into a lake screaming. I tore the curtains off my window, cut the fabric into long strips, tied them into knots and anchored one end to the radiator. I tied the other end around my waist. We lived on the 3rd floor of an upscale, gated community for government officials. Not too high, but standing on the window ledge still gave me a wave of vertigo. I carefully stepped 1 foot out. Instantly screams erupted from below. Little girl, what are you doing? That's too dangerous. Go back inside. Go back. This was the city official's residential compound, the place I grew up in. Today, Chloe Jones was going to drag her family's reputation through the MUD. I slowly let the rope down. Panicking. Neighbors were just about to call the police when I landed, safely on the ground. My revenge was meant for my parents. I wasn't about to waste police resources. Don't worry, folks. I was just locked inside for too long and needed some fresh air. I smiled, putting on a brave, tragic face. Even though we lived in the government compound, my parents actually owned several properties, mansions, and luxury condos. This brings me to my complicated family background. My father was the golden child who climbed out of a dirt-poor, rural town. He was the only college graduate from his county back in the day, entered local government, hustled for over a decade, and was now the second in command of the entire city bureau. But my dad wanted both money and power, so he made my mom quit her job to run businesses under her name. As a front, his political career skyrocketed and their bank accounts overflowed. But unluckily for him, he was stuck with a daughter like me. Tough shit for him, huh? The people in the compound gave my dad face and didn't blow the incident out of proportion. But everyone was gossiping behind his back. My dad beat the hell out of me again. This time he was really swinging for the fences. Right in the middle of the beating, I suddenly blurted out, "Dad, did you forget to eat breakfast? Where's the strength?" He completely froze. Then his face turned a violent shade of red like an enraged bull. And he charged at me? I bolted to the window like a flash of lightning, threw it open and screamed, "Help! Domestic violence. I'm being beaten to death." My mom scrambled over, clamped a hand over my mouth, dragged me backward and slammed the window shut. "Beat me to death. Tomorrow you'll be on the front page, and I'll be in hell. I even got the headline ready for you." Shocking. City commissioner does the unthinkable to his daughter at midnight. Is it a loss of humanity or moral bankruptcy? My dad was highly intelligent. Otherwise he wouldn't have been a college graduate. He forced himself to calm down heavily, slumping onto the sofa. "Spit it out. What do you want by acting this crazy?" Dad asked, lighting up a cigarette. "Put the cigarette out," I commanded. His hand twitched. "You little bastard. You dare think about your next words carefully before you speak to me." I crossed my arms, staring down at him with an authoritative glare. "Do you believe I'll send you to a fucking psych ward?" he threatened, clenching his jaw. I sneered. The great Commissioner Jones raised a lunatic daughter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If I'm crazy, so are you. No wonder you've been stuck as a deputy commissioner your whole life. It's because your own flesh and blood is a certified psycho. He aggressively crushed his cigarette into the ashtray. "You don't have to be my daughter." I looked at him like he had a single brain cell. No way. Is anyone out there really that generous to raise another man's kid? He froze for a second, then lowered his head and stopped talking. "Richard Jones, you better believe I'm not exactly thrilled to be your daughter either. Let's make some ground rules." The time I turned 15, I had successfully morphed into the demonic terror of the household. Sometimes when Mia tried to snatch my things, Mom would actually snatch them back. She would toss them to me and snap at her. "Why are you taking her stuff? If you want something, I'll buy it for you." There was no love, but there was no abuse either. That was enough for me. One night, Mia came up to me and said, "Sister, I really pity you." What? What's the point of rebelling against Mom and Dad? You won't get a single red cent of the inheritance in the future. I kept reading my book, totally ignoring her, but she kept running her mouth. "Chloe, who are you faking it for? Mom, Dad and I are a family of 3. You are never going to be welcome in this house. If you were smart, you'd pack your bags and get the hell out when you turn 18. Maybe I'll convince them to throw a few $1,000 your way." I hurled the hardcover book straight at her, hailing her right in the forehead. "Oh my God, sister." I shrieked at the top of my lungs. "Sister, why did you smash that book into your own head? If I have committed a sin, let God punish me. Do not hurt my innocent sister. I only drank soy milk this morning. I haven't even eaten meat. I'm doing good deeds." I roared. I violently slammed my own forehead into the floor. Then I started crawling toward her in a twisted posture, picked my nose and wiped the booger onto her shirt. "Sister, how can I live without you?" Mia shrieked in terror. "Don't come near me. Stay away." She scrambled backward, kicking her legs frantically as if I were a literal demon crawling out of a television screen. Dad. Help." Mia screamed, tears instantly streaming down her face. The door to our shared bedroom flew open. Mom and Dad rushed in, their faces pale. They took one look at the scene. Mia backed into a corner, sobbing hysterically with a red welt forming on her forehead. And me, sprawled on the floor, weeping violently, repeatedly smacking my own hands against the hardwood floor. "What happened?" Dad roared, his eyes darting between us. "Dad. She hit me." Mia wailed, pointing a shaking finger at me. She threw the book at my head and then started acting crazy again. I didn't miss a beat. I cranked the volume of my sobs to an ear-piercing level, clutching my chest as if I were having a heart attack. "Mom. Dad," I gasped, forcing hyperventilation. Mia said she was going to pack my bags and throw me out on the street when I turn 18. She said I wasn't part of this family, and that I wouldn't get a single cent. I got so scared, I tried to give her my book to make her happy, but she knocked it out of my hands and it hit her. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I'm a burden." I then proceeded to aggressively slap my own cheeks, chanting, Bad Chloe. Bad Chloe. You should have just died in the countryside. Dad's face contorted. He hated noise. He hated scandal. But above all, he hated the reminder of his own hypocrisy. He looked at Mia, his golden child, who was now staring at me with a mixture of absolute horror and profound confusion. She was used to the old me, the silent, weeping martyr who took the blame for everything. She didn't know how to fight a goblin. Mia, Dad barked, his voice dangerously low. Did you tell your sister she was going to be thrown out? I just. Mia stuttered, totally caught off guard by the fact that the spotlight of blame was suddenly shifting. I was just telling her the truth. She acts like a psycho. Why should she get anything? Smack. The sound echoed through the room. Dad had slapped Mia. Not as hard as he used to hit me, but hard enough to leave a red handprint on her cheek. Mia froze. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. You do not decide who stays in my house, and you do not decide who gets my money, Dad hissed, his political paranoia flaring up. He was a man obsessed with control. Mia speaking as if she already owned his empire was a direct threat to his ego. If word gets out that my own daughters are fighting over inheritance before I'm even dead, my career is finished. He turned to me, his chest heaving. And you. Stop slapping yourself. Get up. I immediately stopped, sitting cross-legged on the floor, looking up at him with wide, innocent, tear-filled eyes. Okay, Daddy. I'll be good. Please don't throw me out. I'll eat the scraps. I don't need money. Dad looked like he wanted to vomit. He rubbed his temples, a massive migraine clearly forming. Nobody is throwing anybody out. Sarah, take Mia to the living room. Put some ice on her head. Mom, entirely bewildered by the shifting dynamics, grabbed a sobbing Mia and dragged her out of the room. Dad stood there for a moment, looking down at me. For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine apprehension in his eyes. He wasn't looking at a daughter. He was looking at an unexploded bomb. You're a monster, Chloe, he muttered under his breath. I smiled, a slow, chilling smile that didn't reach my eyes. I learned from the best, Commissioner. By the time I entered high school, my reputation within the family was solidified. I was the radioactive core of the Jones household. Unpredictable, dangerous, and entirely untouchable. They tried to send me to a boarding school, citing my need for a structured environment. I responded by packing a single garbage bag full of my clothes, walking out to the front gate of our upscale community, and sitting on the curb with a cardboard sign that read, City Commissioner's daughter exiled for being too ugly. Please donate for bus fare. Dad's secretary was sent to drag me back inside within 15 minutes. They never mentioned boarding school again. Instead, they adopted a policy of extreme appeasement. They realized that ignoring me or abusing me resulted in catastrophic public relations nightmares. So they bought my silence. My allowance tripled. I was given my own room, the master guest suite, because I claimed Mia's breathing disrupted my chi and made me want to scream out the window. But I didn't spend the money on designer clothes or makeup like Mia did. I hoarded it. I bought textbooks, online courses, and tutoring sessions under a fake name. In my past life, I had sacrificed my education to do chores, to cook, to clean, hoping to earn their love. I ended up working dead-end retail jobs while Mia went to an Ivy League university on Dad's dime. Not this time. I studied with the ferocity of a starving animal. I didn't care about making friends. I didn't care about high school drama. My only goal was absolute, undeniable excellence. I needed to build a fortress so high and so strong that neither Richard nor Sarah Jones could ever reach me again. By my junior year, I was ranked #1 in the state. Dad, ever the politician, tried to capitalize on it. We were at a dinner party hosted by the mayor. The room was filled with the city's elite. Dad was holding a glass of scotch, laughing with a group of businessmen, while Mom paraded Mia around, trying to secure a future marriage alliance. I was sitting in a corner, quietly eating a plate of oysters, when Dad called me over. Gentlemen, you haven't properly met my youngest, Chloe, Dad said, wrapping a heavy, suffocating arm around my shoulders. He squeezed tight, a silent warning to behave. Top of her class. State champion in the math Olympiad. She's got her sights set on Harvard. The businessmen murmured their impressed approvals. A brilliant mind, Commissioner, one of them said. You must be very proud. Takes a strong family to raise such a focused young woman. Oh, absolutely, Dad lied smoothly, flashing his political smile. Family is everything. We prioritize education above all else. I looked up at the businessman, putting down my oyster fork. I smiled, the perfect picture of a dutiful daughter. My father is too modest, I said, my voice sweet and clear, carrying just loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. He's been incredibly hands-on with my upbringing. Why, just a few years ago, he was so passionate about my discipline. He nearly broke his hand teaching me a lesson. The smiles on the businessmen's faces froze. Dad's grip on my shoulder turned into a vice. His knuckles went white. Chloe has a colorful sense of humor, he laughed nervously, a bead of sweat breaking out on his forehead. Oh, I'm not joking. I chirped brightly, turning to Dad. Remember Daddy? When I was 10. You hit me so hard I couldn't hear out of my left ear for a week. You said it was character building. It really worked. I've been terrified of failure ever since. The silence in that corner of the room was deafening. The businessmen exchanged deeply uncomfortable glances. One of them cleared his throat and suddenly found his empty glass fascinating. Well, a look at the time. I need to find my wife. They scattered like roaches when the lights turn on. Dad didn't say a word until we were in the armored SUV heading home. The glass partition separating us from the driver was rolled up. You vindictive little bitch, Dad hissed, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. Do you have any idea who you were talking to? That was the zoning committee chairman. I know exactly who he was, I replied calmly, looking out the window at the passing city lights. And now he knows exactly who you are. I feed you. I clothe you. I give you thousands of dollars a month. Dad exploded, slamming his fist against the leather seat. What more do you want? I turned to look at him. The man who had terrified me for 2 lifetimes suddenly looked small. Pathetic. I want you to remember, I said softly, my eyes dead and cold, that every time you try to use me to polish your crown, I will publicly tarnish it. You don't get to claim my success, Richard. You didn't build it. You just survived it. Mom, sitting in the front passenger seat, turned around, her face pale. Chloe, please. Your father is up for the mayoral nomination next year. If you keep doing this, you'll ruin us. Ruin you? I let out a sharp, genuine laugh. Mom, you ruined yourselves the day you decided one child was a blessing and the other was a punching bag. I'm just balancing the ledger. Senior year arrived, bringing with it the intense pressure of college applications. Mia, who was a sophomore in a mediocre private college, was struggling. She was failing her classes, partying too hard, and constantly calling home for money. Mom and Dad were furious, but they kept bailing her out, terrified of the scandal of a dropout daughter. I, on the other hand, received my acceptance letter to MIT early in the spring. I didn't tell them. I intercepted the mail, hid the letter in my safe, and continued to act as though I was agonizing over my options. The climax of our twisted family dynamic arrived in late May, just weeks before my high school graduation. Dad had officially announced his candidacy for mayor. His polling numbers were strong, built entirely on a platform of family values and integrity. It was sickeningly ironic, but the public ate it up. One evening, he called a family meeting in the formal living room. Mom and Mia were already sitting on the plush velvet sofa. Mia looked nervous, chewing on her thumbnail. Dad stood by the fireplace, looking unusually serious. I walked in, taking a seat in the single armchair, crossing my legs. Make it quick. I have AP Physics to review. Dad cleared his throat. Chloe, as you know, the campaign is entering a critical phase. The press is digging into everything. Every aspect of our lives is under a microscope. Fascinating. Should I prepare my happy family smile, or do you want the prodigy daughter routine? I asked dryly. Dad ignored my sarcasm. Mia has made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow, looking at my sister. Which one? Did she crash another Porsche, or did she fail economics again? Mia glared at me, her eyes brimming with tears. Shut up, Chloe. Mia is pregnant, Mom blurted out, her voice cracking. I froze. That was unexpected. In my past life, Mia had carefully navigated her college years, eventually marrying a wealthy heir Dad had set her up with. This was a massive deviation from the timeline. Well, I said slowly, a genuine smirk creeping onto my face. Congratulations are in order. The family values candidate is about to be a grandfather. Who is the lucky father? We don't know, Dad said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. His face was a mask of pure political panic. She was at a fraternity party. She doesn't remember. I let out a low whistle. A scandal of epic proportions. The press is going to have a field day. Commissioner's daughter expecting unknown frat bro's baby. Catchy. That's enough. Dad snapped. This is a crisis. If this gets out, my campaign is dead. My career is over. So get an abortion, I said flatly. It's not complicated. She's too far along, Mom cried, burying her face in her hands. She hid it from us. She's almost 5 months. The doctors said it's too risky to terminate now. I looked at Mia. She was visibly shaking, terrified of our father's wrath. For a fleeting second, I felt a microscopic pang of pity. Then I remembered her telling me she was going to pack my bags and throw me on the street. The pity vanished. Okay, I said, leaning back in the chair. So, you have a pregnant, unwed daughter. What does this have to do with me? Dad looked at Mom. Mom looked away. A cold, heavy dread settled in my stomach. I knew that look. It was the look they gave each other right before they decided I was the sacrificial lamb. Chloe, Dad began, adopting his most persuasive, diplomatic tone. You are turning 18 next week. You are legally an adult. And we need to protect the family image, Dad said smoothly. We have a plan. We are going to send Mia to a private clinic in Switzerland for a study abroad program. She will have the baby there quietly. Okay. Still not seeing my role in this tragicomedy. Dad took a deep breath. When the baby is born, we need someone to claim it. Someone who isn't in the public eye. Someone who can quietly raise the child away from the press. I stared at him. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of the request short-circuited my brain for a full 10 seconds. You want me to take her baby? I whispered, my voice barely audible. It makes sense, Chloe. Mom chimed in, her voice desperate. You don't care about social status. You've always been independent. We will buy you a house in another state. We will give you a multi-million-dollar trust fund. You will be set for life. You just have to take a gap year, Dad added, pacing the room. Raise the kid for a few years until the mayoral term is over. Then, when things settle down, Mia can adopt it back. It's a temporary arrangement. For the family. For the family. The words echoed in my head, a haunting replay of my past life. For the family, Chloe, drop out of school. For the family, Chloe, give Mia your kidney. For the family, Chloe, die quietly. I slowly stood up. Mia wouldn't look at me. She just stared at the floor, sobbing softly. You want me, I said, my voice rising in volume with every word. To sacrifice my college education, my freedom, and my reputation. To play nanny to a bastard child so you can win an election? Don't use that word. Dad snapped. It's your niece or nephew. Have some compassion. Compassion. I roared. The sheer force of my voice made all three of them physically flinch. The goblin I had kept tightly leashed for the past 3 years violently ripped free. I grabbed the heavy crystal vase off the coffee table and hurled it directly at the fireplace. It shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces, the sound exploding like a gunshot in the quiet room. Mom screamed, covering her head. You parasitic, narcissistic monsters. I shrieked, advancing on Dad. I didn't care that he was a foot taller than me. I didn't care about his political power. I was a force of nature. You left me to rot for 10 years. You beat me until I bled. You treated me like a disease, and now, when your golden child ruins your precious image, you expect me to clean up the mess. Chloe, calm down, Dad yelled, backing away from my fury. I will not calm down. I screamed, grabbing a handful of my own hair and yanking it hard, reverting to the unhinged terror that frightened them the most. I dropped to my knees, letting out a guttural, animalistic wail. You want a scandal? I screamed, looking up at them with wild, tear-streaked eyes. I'll give you a scandal. I'll walk right down to the local news station tomorrow. I'll tell them everything. I'll show them the medical records of the bruises you gave me. I'll tell them about Mia's baby. I'll burn this entire family to the ground. You wouldn't dare, Dad hissed, his face pale with terror. I stopped screaming. I stood up, smoothing my shirt, my expression instantly shifting from hysterical rage to absolute, chilling calm. Try me, Richard, I whispered softly. I have nothing to lose. I died once already. You have an empire to lose. I walked over to the armchair, picked up my backpack, and slung it over my shoulder. I am leaving, I said, my voice steady and cold. I am moving out tonight. You will not contact me. You will not try to find me. If I see your face, if I hear your voice, I hit the nuclear button and end your career. You have no money. You have nowhere to go. Mom cried, standing up. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket and threw it on the coffee table. It was a printed copy of my bank statement. Dad leaned over and looked at it. His eyes widened. $400,000, he breathed. I didn't spend my allowance, I said with a cruel smile. And I happen to be very good at day trading. I also have a full-ride scholarship to MIT. I don't need you. I never needed you. I just needed to survive you. I turned and walked toward the door. Chloe, wait. Mia suddenly cried out, standing up. Please. You're my sister. What am I going to do? I stopped in the doorway and looked back at her. The golden child, completely broken by her own mistakes, begging the goblin for salvation. You're going to reap what you sow, Mia, I said softly. Just like them. I walked out of the mansion, leaving the heavy oak door open behind me. The cool spring air hit my face, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I took a deep, unrestricted breath. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't need any of the clothes or the trinkets they had bought me. I had my mind, I had my money, and I had my freedom. 10 years later, the skyline of Boston glittered outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office. At 28, I was the youngest lead engineer at one of the world's premier aerospace defense contractors. I had patents in my name, a penthouse in the city, and a life that was entirely fiercely my own. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing a schematic for a new propulsion system, when my assistant buzzed in. Ms. Jones? There's a situation at the front desk. A man claiming to be your father is demanding to see you. Security is asking how you want to handle it. I froze. The pen in my hand stopped moving. Richard Jones. I hadn't seen or heard from him in a decade. I had kept tabs on them, of course. It was a necessary precaution. Dad's mayoral campaign had imploded spectacularly a month after I left. A rival politician had caught wind of Mia's sudden disappearance to Switzerland. The press dug deep, uncovered the pregnancy, and the family values platform crumbled. Dad lost the election by a landslide. The stress destroyed my parents' marriage. Mom filed for divorce, taking half the assets. Dad was forced into early retirement, his political career permanently dead. Mia had returned from Switzerland with a son she resented, drifting from one disastrous relationship to another, constantly draining whatever money Dad had left. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the blinking light on my phone. I could have security throw him out. I could ignore him. But the goblin inside me, the twisted creature born from years of abuse and neglect, wanted one last look at the wreckage. Send him up, I said. 10 minutes later, the heavy glass doors to my office opened. I barely recognized him. The imposing, terrifying Commissioner Jones was gone. The man who walked into my office looked frail, his hair completely white, his shoulders stooped. He wore a suit that was 10 years out of style and hung loosely on his shrinking frame. He stopped in the center of the room, looking around at the sleek, modern office, the awards on the wall, the sheer power radiating from my position. Chloe, he said, his voice raspy and weak. I didn't stand up. I didn't offer him a seat. I just looked at him, my expression entirely blank. Hello, Richard, I said. You have exactly 3 minutes. He flinched at the use of his first name. He wrung his hands together, looking down at the floor. I saw your face in a magazine, he murmured. Forbes 30 under 30. I asked around. Found out you were here. Congratulations on your detective skills. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He swallowed hard, looking up at me. His eyes were watery. Mia is in trouble, Chloe. Her ex-boyfriend took all her money. She's getting evicted. My pension barely covers my own medical bills. I had a minor stroke last year. Fascinating medical history, I replied coldly. I failed to see the relevance. We need help, Chloe, Dad pleaded, taking a step toward my desk. You have so much. You're so successful. We're your family. I know I made mistakes. I know I wasn't a good father. But surely, after all this time, you can find it in your heart to forgive. I stared at him. The sheer audacity of the man was almost impressive. He hadn't come to apologize for the beatings. He hadn't come to make amends for the years of neglect. He had come because his golden child was broke, and the bank of Chloe was apparently open for business. I slowly stood up, walking around my massive mahogany desk. I stopped a few feet away from him. Forgive? I asked softly, tilting my head. Yes, Dad whispered, a glimmer of desperate hope in his eyes. I smiled. It was the exact same smile I had given him when I was 14, standing in the living room with cake on my face, right after he had beaten me. It was the smile of a lunatic. Suddenly, I dropped to the floor. Dad gasped, jumping back. I crawled toward him, twisting my body into an unnatural, spider-like posture. I grabbed the perfectly tailored leg of my designer pants and began to violently pull my own hair, letting out a low, guttural moan that echoed through the pristine office. Ah! I wailed, rolling my eyes into the back of my head, my hands slapping the expensive hardwood floor. The ghosts of the countryside. They're hitting me. They're telling me to give away my money. Ah! Dad stumbled backward, his face turning ashen. Chloe, stop. What are you doing? I stopped. I sat up perfectly straight, smoothing my hair back into place. I looked up at him from the floor, my eyes completely lucid and terrifyingly cold. I'm giving you my answer, Richard, I said, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper. I am still the crazy, demonic burden you created. And a psycho doesn't give handouts. I stood up, brushing a speck of dust off my knee. I walked over to my desk and pressed the intercom. Security, I said smoothly. My guest is leaving. Please escort him out of the building. And if he ever shows his face here again, have him arrested for trespassing. Dad stood frozen, his chest heaving, realizing that the bridge wasn't just burned. It had been nuked from orbit. You really are a monster, he whispered, tears finally spilling over his wrinkled cheeks. I know, I said, returning to my chair and picking up my pen. Now get out of my office. I didn't look up as the security guards entered and escorted the broken old man out the door. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. I didn't feel triumph. I just felt peace. I looked down at the schematic on my desk, the complex lines and calculations that made sense of the world. I was Chloe Jones. I was a dark, twisted creature who had crawled out of hell and built an empire. And I was never, ever going back.